Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this postmortem of my Blitz game number 721. I start off with d4, and my opponent played knight c6, which has its own name actually, the Mechanis defense. You can see it's a pretty rare opening move, but it has been played before. And then I went e4. And actually after e4, which is kind of a natural move here, knight f3 could have been played to say in separate channels, but after e4 we've actually transposed into the Nimzowitsch defense. The Nimzowitsch defense is knight c6 in response to e4, so and d5 is a natural follow-up there. So this is the main line of the Nimzowitsch defense. And black can play either of the pawns forward, either e5 or d5, and there's also knight f6 going for the black knight's tango. Anyway, my opponent chose to go with d5, and I just went with e5, which is enough for a slight edge to white, so a decent way to play. But actually, knight c3 is the line that gives white the biggest advantage. So just to show this to you, there's a couple of little wrinkles here, and it's kind of useful to know. You're putting more pressure on that d-pawn and just threatening to take it. So the normal response here is to exchange. If black plays e6 here, then we've just transposed into a French defense where this knight on c6 maybe is not as well placed. Although that is a line in the French defense, putting the knight on c6 there. But exchanging is the way to keep it in separate territories. And then instead of grabbing right away, which would be pretty much nothing for white, you push on first and try and drive this knight to a less convenient square and bring the queen out, hitting the knight again, or the knight may have gone back to b8, but this is the idea, is to take that pawn with the queen. You've got a couple of active pieces as white, you've got an advanced pawn, and so a pretty decent advantage for white. So I just wanted to show that. In the game, I went with e5. And he goes bishop f5, the main move there. I go c3, just shoring up this pawn chain. And then he played h6. This gives his bishop a retreat square in h7. It's not the main move. Usually they play e6 first. And actually there's no hurry to play h6 because I don't have any piece that's threatening that bishop that's ready to pounce. This knight takes a couple of moves to get into position to challenge that bishop. So h6 is not necessary here, and e6 is probably a little more accurate. But anyway, we're out of the book at this point. He played h6, and after knight f3, then he followed up with e6. So probably it's the same kind of position he might have gotten by transposition. So I just do some normal developing. I'm doing okay through this first part. Let's just get the pieces out. I'll show where I start to go wrong. I didn't react correctly to this g5 move. I make a couple of moves that actually give black, at least an equal game, and in some cases a better game. So what should I play here? This is a premature pawn assault. Black really hasn't developed, and I don't have any real targets. It's a mistake to play a move like h3 because that just encourages black to push on with g4 and open up some lines. It sort of justifies black's play, and there's a general rule that you don't want to move the pawns in front of your king because in situations where you're facing a pawn storm, because it just creates weaknesses for your opponent to go after. But I thought this move g3 would be okay because if he pushed on with g5 immediately, then my knight would come here to h4. But he didn't push on immediately, so he played, and so my g3 move just didn't work out. And so it's just a case of not looking ahead far enough. So the chess engine recommends dropping the knight back to e1 and and then developing this knight via a3. And this is the line given, and then this knight coming out to d3. So kind of an interesting way of untangling. But I think the key idea, the takeaway is, don't move those pawns in front of the king. Make black take as many moves as possible to move those pawns forward and try and arrange your pieces for a good defense here. I doubt, actually, this was the chess engine's recommended line. I doubt if black would have played like that either because, he's pretty much dedicated to this pawn storm, so probably he would be bringing his rook to the g-file and pushing pawns forward or something. But in any case, that's the way to refute this, is to keep these pawns back and then try and get your pieces developed. So g3 was a mistake, and it's because of this knight g6 move. Now I can't play, well, it's not so great to play knight to h4 after he plays g5. So anyway, I went knight bd2, a second mistake, because of the move bishop to h3. He could actually really cause me some trouble here if he were to play bishop to h3, hitting my rook. And the idea is I can't block it at the moment, so I move the rook aside, and then he plays g4. If he had done it in this sequence, then this rook has nowhere to go. Notice that all of the various escape routes for the knight have been covered. So the only move left really is to play the knight out to h4. And I didn't want to play that because he will exchange the knight and then take a pawn. So that actually wins a pawn, although it's still not entirely clear that that's winning for black, but certainly giving black a lot more than he ought to have. So anyway, but he didn't go for that. He continued to play quickly. He played this move bishop e7, you can see, in 3 seconds. So so definitely his quick move technique is costing him points here, or opportunities. Let's see. So I played king g2 after some thought. Keeps the bishop out of h3 and opens up the g1 square for the knight. And let's see, he goes g4 now, pushing my knight back. He still has a decent position here because I've made a few inaccurate moves. And now I get my rook to the e-file, and he plays h4. He actually had a better move here in f6. It's just that he's sort of single-mindedly focusing on the king side here, but I think this is kind of instructive. He's kind of pushed my pieces with this king side assault. He's pushed my pieces around and got them sort of awkwardly arranged, and nobody is defending my e5 point. At one point I had a knight here, and I was going to put a rook here, and my idea was to defend that point solidly, but nothing at the moment is defending it, and he can start to undermine the center with f6, and this would be good for black. So he just pushed on with h4. Let's see, I brought my other knight over here. He took, and then I took back with the f-pawn, which is a mistake actually, and I played that kind of quickly, so this is a move where I went too quick. But anyway, h takes is the better move because of bishop b4. He didn't ever play this move, but it was a threat in the position that he never took advantage of. And when I have the f-pawn, at least I can play a move like f3 to block this and maybe get some trades in here. It's kind of unnatural to play h takes and open up the h-file, but it's just necessary because after f takes, if he had taken the time to look around for the best move here, he might have found bishop e4 check, and this is pretty strong. Let's see, the king has to move, and then he can bring his knight into e5. Yeah, this is kind of a clever technique. Okay, so maybe this part he wouldn't have seen. This is a chess engine line. He can actually sacrifice a knight on e5 and then come in here with the bishop, and with the open lines and the bishops, he actually has a winning attack here. So that would have been the sad end for me. Instead, he played this knight h4 sacrifice, which I thought was completely dumb. I didn't see the advantage of that sacrifice at all. But the chess engine thinks black is doing okay here. It doesn't think black is better, but black is not worse either. That black gets into trouble later. So this attack is still has some things going for it. He does get my king kind of exposed. He's got the bishops here, a rook behind it, and so things are a little bit tricky. Once again, he has this bishop e4 check that he's not using. Let's see. So I went knight g3. I'm trying to get my pieces back into some kind of semblance of a defense, and I'm attacking his bishop. Well, not attacking it, but I'm threatening to trade it off. So he decided to trade off his dark squared bishop. And then right here, he played queen e7. and that is the losing move. He's actually losing after this. And let's see, spent 8 seconds on that move. Yeah, when you've got an attack going, you really owe it to yourself to try and find the best way to continue the attack. And he might have, if he had thought about it, found this move, bishop to e4 check. Once again, that's the best way to play it. And it chases my king away from the h-file. So after the king comes here, his rook can come into the second rank. Let's see, I can develop a piece here and defend my my g-pawn, but I'm pretty well tied up, and this is a good position for black. He's threatening things like the bishop here. Yeah, it's probably at least a draw. I don't know. Maybe my king can walk out this way. But anyway, he has a good attack going, and he doesn't have to play that immediately. He can now, having gotten his pieces here, he can now figure out how to bring his queen in or the rook in. Instead, he went queen e7 immediately with the idea of castling queenside and just doubling the rooks on the h-file, which is not a bad plan, but you have to calculate what's going on. And I just have enough time to defend against that, so it's not an effective plan. I mean, it's a good idea in concept, but it doesn't work in practice. So right here, I could actually go ahead and grab this pawn. I kind of noticed that after I'd played bishop to d3, but I could actually just take that pawn. I went bishop to d3 to force an exchange of that bishop. I want to get rid of one of his attacking pieces here. He goes for the trade. That also helps me clear the back rank. It's just going to take 2 more moves before I get my pieces onto the h1 square. So he takes a couple of moves as well. He castles queenside. I get my knight off the back rank, so I can bring my rook to h1. And he plays f5 here, so he wants to be able to bring his queen to the h-file. I mean, the other thing is he could have tried lifting the rook, but that would, in either case, give me time to get my bishop off the back rank, and now I can put a rook on the h1 square supported by the other rook and the king. So that is good enough to deal with any kind of battery along the h-file. So anyway, I'm still winning because I'm just a piece up and his attack has pretty much disappeared. And so I go ahead and exchange off these rooks. I thought it would be a little bit easier. And then he went back to g8 with his rook to try and keep the rook in the game. So knight g8, I'm just need to make sure my pieces are active, and I should be able to bring this home. So he goes queen g7. I went rook to h4. That's a move I played too quickly. I spent 9 seconds on it. But yeah, this pawn was hanging, and I should have just taken that. That's definitely no reason not to take that. So rook h4, that was played too quickly. At some point here, though, there's this huge time difference between us. My opponent has been moving quickly, and I've been thinking, and at some point that time advantage can become a factor. So I have to start moving a little quickly just to not lose on time or get into complicated situations where I don't have time to figure it out. So he plays queen f7. I go queen to f1. I'm just trying to bring my queen over to the h-file. Goes knight e7. He's bringing his knight in. Get my queen on the h-file. Knight to g6. And now I can start to... well, first I trade off his knight. I'm happy to remove some pieces and go for an endgame here. Cancel that. You did queen takes g6, of course. And rook to h8. This forces some more trades. So he played b6 here. I guess he's going to try and unpin by moving the king. I just go ahead and exchange the rook, and then play queen to h6, penetrating with my queen. Let's see, he went king b7, getting it off the back rank, and I went bishop to g5. This part was actually bishop to g5. Sorry, this part was actually a little bit tricky. He went king b7. I went bishop to g5. Yeah, it's hard to figure out how to make progress. I don't want to allow his queen in and to start giving perpetual checks, and his king seems fairly safe over here on the queen side. The chess engine is suggesting, instead of that bishop move, to play the move a4 and maybe try and open up some lines over here. But of course the queen is a good piece. He can easily maneuver his queen around, and if I create too many weaknesses over here, the queen can come in on the queen side and start checking my king from this direction. So you know, you have to proceed with caution here at these pawn moves. But anyway, the chess engine likes that push with the a pawn. Okay, so I played bishop g5. Here, let's go forward. There's just some maneuvers here where I'm just trying to figure out how to arrange my pieces. Eventually I decided I needed to bring my queen back here and support these pawns, keep his queen from getting in, and then I am thinking of trying to open up some lines over here towards his king. He helps me out by actually pushing his pawns forward. That opens up some lines here, and gives my bishop something to look at. I'm thinking of trying to arrange the b pawn, a push of the b pawn there. So there's a little more maneuvering here, and yeah, he does get in this check, and he wins a pawn. But I figured I would be able to round up this pawn, so I wasn't too worried about this. And here I went bishop g5. After I played bishop g5, I was thinking maybe I should have gone for the queen trade, but actually looking at this with the chess engine, this would not have worked out. So it's a good thing I didn't go for this. Queen takes, king c6. You know, he has a lot of pawns. This pawn in particular is passed, and you know, I do have time to stop it. I have bishop g5. That was what I saw, and since I had bishop g5, I didn't have to worry about it. But his king gets really active here, comes forward and attacks my pawn, and you know, he can always distract my bishop with this pawn and capture that pawn. And this is about even according to the chess engine. Slight edge to white, but not a winning advantage. So, you know, I could certainly play it for a win in this position, but would be much more difficult. So it was a good thing I didn't go for that line. The best line here, the chess engine likes queen to c4. And now that I see that, it looks like a good move. Just rounding up that pawn immediately with the queen. And I was worried about his queen coming in, but after queen f3, I can go check and start picking up some pawns here, similar to what happened in the game. Yeah, get a couple checks, and then queen to e8 check, and this is a winning attack. So yeah, it's a little hard to calculate because you always have to watch out for queen takes g3 check and then perpetual checks along the back rank. So so that would be a very difficult line to play if you were playing for a win and you weren't chess engines. You couldn't calculate all those 20 moves ahead. You would have to calculate to allow the queen in. So it's more natural to play some other move like bishop to g5, keep his queen from invading. That's my queen here is covering all of the invasion squares. Okay, so you went king b6 here, and I went a4, thinking once again of trying to arrange a queen trade, hopefully under better circumstances this time. He went queen to d5, went queen b5 check, thinking that I could get back in time. He plays king to c7. I can at least pick up this pawn with check, and then I can take on c3, and that defends my f3 pawn and my e5 pawn. So it looks like I'm just holding on to everything and doing pretty good. He moves his king back to c6. I push on with a5, trying to get a little counterplay over here. Goes king b5, holding on to my pawn. And let's say go bishop d2. I'm going to defend that pawn with the bishop and then start maneuvering with my queen a little more. But let's see. Yeah, if I go for the immediate queen trade once again, I thought of this after I made the move. This queen trade here is still not so clear. Queen takes. The problem with these queen trades is that cancel that. Actually, it's most yeah. He can't take this pawn because the a pawn would queen, but he can take the a pawn, and then he can come back and attack that pawn. So, well, you know, I get a move here. I get the bishop in here. But the chess engine thinks this is not so clear. It did not find a win here. It gave a slight edge to white. So, yeah, watch out for those queen trades. So it can be a bit tricky. Okay, so I went with bishop d2. He went queen e4, and now I go for the queen trade, and this turns out to be a good one. This is actually winning. So I guess the difference here is I'm already defending the a pawn. Yeah. So if he plays queen takes, for example, I take, and king takes. This is the line where this pawn wins, and so the king has to go back actually to stay. Maybe he would go in front of the pawn, but anyway, I'm holding on to my pawns with the bishop. His king can't penetrate, has to stay in the neighborhood of this pawn, and that gives me time to get my king into the game. I guess my king can march in like this and come around and eat this pawn, and I have a win. So there is a winning endgame after this queen trade. He avoided the queen trade for one move by playing king c6, but I took his queen off and then started bringing my king into the game. He tried to activate his king, but played bishop to c3 here, and not only does that defend this pawn, but it also, his king can't easily penetrate here. He could have tried pushing that pawn forward actually. So but at this point he chose to resign with lots of time on his clock still. Anyway, so it was an interesting game, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon.